So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this little bit here and this little bit here. We're going to kind of work our way around, and then we can paint the village or the town here and then the tree. Okay, so let's start upwards and we'll kind of work our way down. And we're going to do that with Cloudless. So that's that greenish light, that light greenish blue, kind of that minty color. I'm just going to stick with the same brush. This brush seems to be working for me. Just going to go ahead and outline where I want this color to go. And I am sort of overlapping the sky a little bit. The reason is I don't want there to be a gap. So as you can see through it a little. You can see the strokes. I'm going to keep that. I'm not going to overlap my colors to try to make it nice and opaque. I like a little bit of that transparency. Okay, and my steeple, as you can see, it's gotten a little bit lost. That's okay, we can put it in there. I would leave a little bit of space though when you're using this green. That way it's another reminder that that is where it's supposed to go. It's just a little bit of like a hill happening there. I'll put some over here too, just a little bit. Okay. Alrighty, great. We'll rinse that off. We're gonna go ahead and jump to our cobalt hue. That's the darkest blue. Paint a little bit right below it. And I've sort of let it blend only on my canvas. So it just touched a little bit. Okay, so letting it blend just a tad on the canvas will give it a nice touch. There we go. Okay. And a little bit over here. Okay. And we're going to jump back to sky blue. Or excuse me, summer sky, which is a light blue. I'm going to paint this section here that sort of has a distinct look. I am going to first paint the lowest line for this section. So right there. And then I'm going to start there and I'm just going to do some swoops. Okay, and that's the part that is this here. So we'll put some black on that afterwards. So you just want to give it a little motion. Okay, there we go. And over in this blank area here, that's a good spot to put some of this in. Okay, there we go. All right, now let's get that cypress tree in there. We're gonna start with our Christmas green. And I'm just going to refine this a little bit before I paint in too much. I want to make sure that I like the shape of it. And the cypress tree does have sort of sections to it, so you can break it up based on section, and you can add to it a little bit if you want to. So I am just following my guide here, and I can sort of see this section right in the center is kind of visible, so I'm just going to mark that like this. And this, because it's so flowy, you can sort of see what works for you. So I'll show you like what I'm doing, but if something else is working for you, that's fine. I want to make sure, how's these branches in here? So I'm using some nice long strokes in here to fill it in, and you can see the strokes. And I'm going to fill in some of the space behind, or between the strokes, with my nutmeg brown and a little black. I definitely recommend looking at either mine or the original, just to see if any of the branches you drew may have gotten kind of lost in the background. It's really easy for that to happen. There we go. Okay. And I'm still using that small brush. Okay. There we go. While I have green, I'm gonna go ahead and put my hills back here, so that I'm just sort of doing a little bit of a rounded shape. And it's blending in, but we'll separate it when we add black. Go. I'm gonna add some back here as well. And the ones that are far away, I'm doing really small strokes. And as they get more towards the front of the canvas, I'm making them bigger. So I'm doing my design kind of like that. Okay, so let's add a little black, a little brown right into things. Have my nutmeg brown. And I'm going to add, I'm going to start from the bottom, kind of work my way up. I'm going to add just a handful of strokes here. And you can go ahead and let those colors sort of blend on your canvas. You don't want to blend them before. And then I'm going to put a little bit of black in there. I focus mine along the edge. That way it doesn't blend into the background too much. So this one I'm starting right from the top. Now while we have black on our brush, I'm going to separate these two colors back here by putting a line right between them. I'm also going to put this design in now. Going to do something similar in these little itty bitty hills. And as I did before, I'm gonna make tiny strokes in the background and make them larger as I move forward. Okay. And the last thing I'll do is define my steeple with the black. just going to define the rest of that church while I've got black. Okay, alrighty. Okay, so for this portion here, in the town, you're gonna want your lighter blue. Pretty much you'll want to make available many of the colors that you have been using. So we've got blues, greens, and then a little bit of yellow for some lights. So I'm gonna use my lightest blue, fill in the church, and it's not supposed to be like extra neat. Like, the trick, I think, is to not overthink it. Just kind of do it. Just get your color in there. So it is supposed to sort of have that charm to it. So in other words, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. There we go. I get that in there. Just gonna fill this area in. Some of the parts of the village are, it's a little bit difficult to distinguish what they are, but you want to get some color in there. Looks like some sort of vegetation, perhaps. Got my blue bonnet. As you can probably, I think you can see, I'm still leaving like a little bit of space for some of that brown to come through. And you're sort of thinking like roofs. So some of that is kind of happening down here in our blue colors. Looks a little messy now, but once we put our black outline on, it'll be a little easier to tell what things are. So a little green. So you're kind of painting like rectangular shapes in there, doing roofs, buildings. But none of it is especially clear since it is supposed to be nighttime. Okay. Then what you'll do is you'll use your black to distinguish one house from the other, because it does sort of look just funny little sections of color. So just put a little bit of an outline. Again, you don't want to spend too much time on it. You want it to, you sort of want it to be like a dream. Like just how a dream isn't super duper clear in your mind, like you get the gist of it. I'm going to give it that dreamy kind of a look. Right, so I'm going to leave it like this. And I am going to put my finishing touches in the sky with my yellow and orange and pop some light into the town. Let's begin with orange. And what I'm going to recommend is making right in the center, right at the heart of that star at the middle. Just make a little dot. Then right around the moon, just gonna make like a couple of strokes because I want my orange to sort of highlight. I don't really want it to take over on the moon. Just put it a little bit. Okay, it's just a touch. Take our yellow. For the most part, you'll fill that moon in. And I'm letting the orange and yellow kind of blend on the canvas. And I'm letting my strokes remain visible. I don't want to over blend. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to go to each of your stars. You're going to start at the center this time. Put some yellow in there, and you're going to work your way out. So little strokes, and you're going to take it just a tad beyond where you left your blue. So you're going to make this even a smidge bigger, in other words, than what it looks like now. So your yellow is overlapping a little bit onto your sky in the background. And you'd like to get a variety of sizes. So some of your stars are bigger than others. Your yellow should go on smoothly and not be blending with your blue. It's all right if it blends with the orange, but hopefully your blue is nice and dry. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right. Let's jump back to our moon because we want to spend just a little more time on that one. Right in the center, you want to make a couple of the lines. So you're sort of filling it in. You might need to outline it a little bit with a little more of like a blue, because you want to show that light is coming from it, but you still need to give it that crescent shape. So what I'm doing is I'm moving again from the center, moving outward. And you want to fill in some of these spaces. So you're going to be generous with your yellow here. Okay. All right. Now you can even add more to that if you want to. I would just let it dry a little bit before you add any more of like yellow and orange in there. While I have my yellow, I'm just gonna go ahead, pop a couple of bright windows. Okay, there we go. All right, so we are gonna put a couple of finishing touches on here. The first one we're gonna do is we're gonna go for our blue-gray. So dark blue-gray, mostly gray kind of color. And we're gonna just pop in a handful of strokes into that top section. It's subtle. You don't want to put too much. Just a handful. And then same at in that bottom section that also is dark. Okay, there we go. Now you're going to do something similar with white. Now the first thing we'll do is in those swirls in the middle, going to take some white, and again, just not a ton, but a handful. Pop some strokes right in there. Even though these are really small additions, that dark blue-gray, this white, I feel like it makes a difference. Just adds just a little bit more. Kind of think it further distinguishes those two colors from one another. There we go. Okay, great. Last thing you're going to do is you're going to add a little bit of white to some of your stars. This was one of the stars that had a little extra white in it. There was one over here that had a little more white. The others just had just a little bit, just like a couple of little strokes here and there. Just a little bit of a highlight. Okay, and then I like putting a couple into the moon, and I do it more towards the outside of that circle. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. Now, this would be the time where you want to add any last details. You can also take a little more of your yellow now that it's like dried a little bit, and just sort of define that moon a little. You can add a little bit of orange, and there we go. So something like that. All right, and that is it for our virtual mini art for this month. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you had fun, and I'll have something else coming in October. Thank you.